You open your camera roll to delete one blurry screenshot. 10 minutes later, you are still scrolling, thumb hovering, strangely unable to press delete. The image is useless. A menu you never ordered from, a receipt you already submitted, a parking spot you no longer need. But deleting it feels less like cleaning and more like erasing a tiny witness. Proof that you were there, thinking that, needing that. That feeling is the quiet center of digital hoarding. Not mess exactly, not laziness. Something closer to fear wrapped around memory. Physical clutter announces itself. It blocks chairs, tables, doorways. Digital clutter hides politely in glass rectangles and cloud storage, asking almost nothing from space. And because it hides, we often miss the psychological weight. The archive does not trip us. It waits for us. In 2015, Van Binnenkom and colleagues described digital hoarding as accumulating files until perspective is lost, producing stress and disorganization. Curious, loss of perspective is such a precise phrase, because the problem is rarely one file. It is the moment the whole pile becomes unthinkable. You do not save the screenshot because it is beautiful. You save it because some future self might need it, and you cannot fully imagine her. A 2018 qualitative study of 45 adults found digital saving was often driven by anxiety, nostalgia, usefulness, and fear of negative consequences. Those motives sound ordinary because they are. Anxiety asks, what if I need this? Nostalgia asks, what if this was important? Usefulness is especially persuasive. A file can feel worthless today and indispensable tomorrow. That possibility gives every image a small legal defense. Yu and Chang's 2025 survey of 294 university students found emotional attachment and fear of missing out predicted digital photo hoarding. Notice the pairing. Attachment says, "This belongs to me." FOMO says, "If I lose it, I may lose access to something possible." That is why a bad photo from a good night can feel harder to delete than a good photo from a forgettable one. The image is not carrying pixels. It is carrying a door. Behind it sits a room you might want to enter again. Yu and Chang modeled this through a stimulus organism response framework. Pressures from life, technology, and people pass through inner states before behavior. In plain language, the outside world invites accumulation. Your inner world interprets it. Then your sum decides whether to save or delete. Their study also named interpersonal influence, life demand, and technological progress as important forces shaping photo hoarding among students. Technology progress matters because saving has become nearly frictionless. The camera is always there. Storage expands. Deletion becomes the only act that requires conviction. Yu and Chang noted that by 2024, people were expected to take 1.94 trillion photos, about 94% from smartphones. So this is not a private oddity, it is a mass-scale memory environment. Billions of small captures become a new background condition of being human. Hafsley. Our grandparents had shoeboxes. We have bottomless rooms that fit in our pockets, and no clear ritual for deciding what deserves to remain. The 2015 BMJ case report framed digital hoarding as a possible subtype of hoarding disorder, though the field remains cautious. Cautious matters here. A huge photo library is not automatically a problem. Quantity alone cannot tell us whether someone is suffering. A better question is, does the archive help you remember, or does it make remembering feel impossible? Memory has always depended on selection. We remember partly by losing detail. Total preservation can become strangely hostile to meaning. Think of a vacation folder with 900 images. At first, it feels abundant. Later, it becomes a swamp you avoid entering. The best photograph may be buried between duplicates, accidental ceiling shots, and screenshots of directions. Preservation without curation can hide the thing preserved. Sweden, Sillens, and Neve found consequences in personal and workplace contexts, including disorganization and difficulty finding important files. That is the paradox. Saving everything promises control. But when everything stays, the archive becomes less searchable, less intimate, less yours. Digital hoarding often begins with care. You are trying not to lose your life. You are trying to respect its tiny fragments. In Yuan Chang's model, emotional attachment mediated the pathway from external pressures to photo hoarding behavior among university students. Attachment does not need grandeur. It can cling to the screenshot of a joke, the blurry face, the sandwich eaten during a hard week. The file becomes a handle on a mood. Delete the file, and some part of you worries the mood loses its handle. The same 2025 study found fear of missing out also mediated digital photo hoarding, connecting social and technological pressures to saving. FOMO usually sounds social, but here it is temporal. You fear missing out on your own past or your own future need. What if that recipe becomes important? What if the outfit photo proves something? What if the old message explains a future misunderstanding? The mind is excellent at inventing possible futures. Some are practical. Some are anxiety wearing a practical costume. One approach is to ask what kind of fear is present: regret, inconvenience, social loss, identity loss, or the dread of being unprepared. Identity loss may be the most tender. Photos do not only show what happened, they show who you were allowed to be then. The screenshot from your old apartment carries more than information. It carries rent panic, late dinners, the person you loved, the weather outside. Sweeten and colleagues reported nostalgia as a motivation for keeping digital materials, alongside anxiety and perceived usefulness. Pause. Nostalgia is not just sweetness, it can ache. It says, I was real in that moment, and I want the record to agree. This is why deletion can feel morally wrong, not because the file deserves immortality, but because the past seems to ask for loyalty. It may help to separate memory preservation from total preservation. A curated trace can honor an experience better than an unsearchable mass. Consider starting with images that contain no memory, accidental pockets, duplicates, blurred ceilings, screenshots of tasks already finished. Low-stakes deletion teaches the nervous system that not every loss is an erasure. Some losses are housekeeping. The 2018 study emphasized that digital hoarding can appear both at home and at work, not just in private memory spaces. At work, saving can feel defensive. Keep the file, keep the proof. Keep the thread, keep protection against blame. That defensive archive is psychologically understandable. Modern life often rewards documentation, but proof can become a private surveillance system aimed inward. If your saving reduces uncertainty for 1 minute but increases overwhelm for months, that trait deserves gentle attention. Von Bennekom's case report described difficulty discarding digital files because they felt needed or emotionally significant. Need is slippery. There is actual need, imagined need, and the need to not feel foolish later for deleting too soon. That last one is powerful. Regret has a sharp anticipatory taste. We try to prevent it by keeping every possible ingredient. But an archive built to prevent every regret becomes impossible to inhabit. It protects you from one pain by creating another. Yu and Chang's findings suggest emotional attachment and FOMO are not side details. They are central mechanisms in photo accumulation. So the task is not simply storage management. It is emotional sorting. Which fragments hold identity and which only hold avoidance? Try naming the reason before deleting. This is evidence. This is nostalgia. This is future usefulness. This is fear. Warmer naming does something small but real. It turns a vague, unsafe feeling into a choice you can examine. If deleting causes intense distress or interferes with work, sleep, or relationships, consider speaking with a qualified mental health professional. For most people, though, the camera roll is less a disorder than a mirror. A messy, overcomplete mirror of wanting life to count. Researchers still debate whether digital hoarding is clinical hoarding, ordinary saving amplified by technology, or an information management problem. That debate is useful. It keeps us from pathologizing ordinary tenderness and from ignoring real distress when the archive becomes unmanageable. Consider creating one small chosen album for a period of life. Not everything, just the images that still speak clearly. Curation can feel like betrayal at first, but it may become a form of care, giving memory shape, edges, and breath. One gentle ritual: delete 10 low-emotion images, then stop. Let your body learn that the archive can change, and you remain. Because that is the deeper fear, isn't it? Not losing a file. Losing continuity with a former self who already feels distant. If this episode gave language to a private habit, a like or subscription helps other curious people find the conversation too. The screenshot you cannot delete may not matter as information. It may matter as a receipt for becoming. Maybe the question is not, why am I keeping this? Maybe it is, what version of me am I afraid to leave unproven? And maybe the answer is not to erase the archive, but to stop asking it to carry the whole burden of being real. Some memories deserve keeping. Some deserve releasing. The art is learning that you can choose and still remain continuous with yourself.